You're listening to the All-American Actors Podcast, episode 30. In today's episode, I am talking with the dynamic duo of Todd Milliner and Michael Matthews, who work in two different parts of the industry in LA, and they're about to share with you their insight into the biz. That's coming up next. Ready to go behind the scenes and learn what it really takes to build a sustainable career as a working actor in the U.S. film and TV industry? Join me, Katherine Beck, your all-American accent coach, as I give you the insight and inspiration to take action on your career. Learn my best tips and tricks to performing with an American accent, and hear from working actors and other industry professionals to give you a comprehensive overview of this biz we call showbiz. This is the All-American Actors Podcast. Oh, I'm so excited to share today's interview with you in just a moment. But first, I'm going to give a big shout out to Helen Kim, who sent me this 5-star review and says, "Such a fabulous podcast, so much fun to listen to, motivating and insightful." Thank you, Helen. So happy to hear that you're enjoying the podcast. I love that I can share with you my insights and tips and bring on amazing guests like we have today. So thanks so much. And remember that these 5-star reviews really help us get ranked and recognized by Apple. So when that happens, we get seen and heard by more actors all across the world. So if you're loving this podcast, go ahead, subscribe, leave that 5-star review, and let us know. All right, let's talk about today's guests. So first, let's talk about Michael Matthews. It was at the young age of 18, I enrolled in an acting conservatory program in Chicago, and that is when we first met. He is kind, compassionate, funny, genuine, and super talented, and he quickly transitioned from acting into directing and has moved so many audiences with his directing brilliance on stage. He's been nominated several times over for Best Director at the Ovation Awards. In 2012, he won Best Director of a Musical for The Color Purple. He also won again in 2015 for Best Director of a Musical for Cabaret, and also won the Los Angeles Drama Critics Circle Award as well. Other accomplishments include the Artistic Director at Celebration Theater in Los Angeles. With such a vast variety of productions he's directed, from The Boy from Oz to The Graduate to Matilda, Michael has proved himself to be a versatile and in-demand director all over town, including the Laguna Playhouse, Kirk Douglas Theater, and La Mirada Theater for the Performing Arts. And now let's talk about his better half, Todd Milliner. Todd is an award-winning producer and writer and co-founder of Hazy Mills Productions, which is co-founded with Sean Hayes. Todd has produced hundreds of episodes for television, stage productions, feature films, and my favorite podcast, aside from this one, which is called Smartless. He's written for shows like Grimm and Roanoke, and co-wrote the Emmy Award-winning 64th Annual Tony Awards. He's even just finished producing the SAG Awards. So let's not waste another moment. I'm so excited to share this interview with you, so let's get it going. Gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourselves to the listeners and let them know who you are and what you do?
My name is Michael Matthews. I've known Miss Katherine for over 2 decades now.
Holy smokes.
I am we went to school together in Chicago, where I majored in directing. And then I left Chicago and came to Los Angeles. And that is where I've been directing theater ever since.
Very cool. And Todd?
I'm Todd Milliner. I haven't known you quite as long. And I am a television producer who dabbles in podcasts and film and stage as well.
Todd, can I tell you that I'm not lying here. I'm telling the truth. My very favorite podcast, when I'm not listening to my own podcast, is your podcast.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. We're just learning how to do it.
It's so much fun. And you know what I love about it is that it's just so organic and natural and fun for the listeners. It's so conversational, and it's just great to just hear, them all be silly and goofy and wacky with whoever they have, on the show. Actually, can you want to talk about what your podcast is?
Sure. The podcast is called Smartless, and it's hosted by my business partner, Sean Hayes. and Jason Bateman of Will Arnett. And if you haven't listened to it, the conceit is that one of these hosts brings on a guest that is a surprise to the other two hosts.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. So how did that happen anyway?
Sean, well, all three have been friends for a long time, and Jason and Sean were at a party, and they were talking about the fact that Will was going to do a podcast, and they should just jump in on that. And that's how they did. And we all got together and we beat out this idea, this very basic idea for the podcast, and the rest is history.
Amazing. And you've had some really interesting guests on there as well, like from some of my favorite. Well, actually, I think my top favorite was with Will Ferrell. I could not stop laughing. He's just so funny. And the four of them together are hilarious. Jennifer Aniston, that was really cool. And then you had some other really interesting people that you've interviewed as well who are not actors.
Yeah, we've tried purposefully not to just do actors. Paul McCartney was on, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Clayton Kershaw on the Los Angeles Dodgers baseball team, for anybody listening outside of the United States.
And our new VP.
Yes, Kamala Harris was on the week it was announced that she was going to be the VP choice.
Amazing. And so for you, because we're all from Chicago, how did you end up getting into producing?
In Chicago, I was acting and teaching at Second City, and then I started making short films and films for corporations. And then I went out to Los Angeles to audition for a show called Talk Soup. And and then I stopped by my friend Sean Hayes, who was on Will and Grace at the time, the first time around. And I said I had an idea for a TV show, and I told him what it was. And then while I was out there, we sold it. And then we sold another show, and I thought, this business is easy. And then we didn't sell anything else for about 6 years. But that's how it started. Luckily, we've had the chance to produce shows like Grimm and Hollywood Game Night and Hot in Cleveland, and so keeping it, we do a lot. We work in a lot of different genres, which keeps it exciting and interesting. Usually, people pick their lane and stick to it, but we've been lucky enough to be able to produce all over the place. Yeah, you have. You've produced all sorts of different content. What was it like then to jump into things like doing more live projects? Like recently, you did the SAG Awards. Is that right? It's everything. I guess everything in my life has been most things in my life have been by accident. But Bob Greenblatt, who was the chairman of NBC for a long time, and then he became the chairman of, or maybe that's his title, of HBO Max, all of that. And one of their networks is TNT TBS, and they produce the SAG Awards each year. And they asked us if we would jump in as a favor to Bob, and we did. And I said it would be a one-off, and we just finished our second year doing it. So, oh wow, it's fun. Oh, Michael, you must be so proud.
I'm so super proud. He just keeps on surprising me every single go around. Like, what are you going to do now?
I actually don't know if I remember the story. How did you two meet?
Do you remember Marty DeMott?
Yes.
Okay, so I was doing The Caretaker, and it was tech. And so back at that time, like a professor had to come in and like watch a tech run of like your show. And Todd came along with Marty. I mean, that's a good friend to go with your friends to go see a tech of a run through of students at Columbia, right? So I mean, that's a really good friend. And so here's Todd sitting in this room, and I'm like, who is the hot guy? Who is that guy? And the rest of the cast were like, we have no idea because we're all straight guys, but sure. And so I met Todd right afterwards, said hello, whatever. And it was my friend Nikolai's birthday, and we were all going to go to cocktail that night for his birthday. It was April 30th, 1998. Mm. And Todd and Marty were going to go somewhere else that night. And I'm like, oh, I think you should come to this bar with us. And Marty's like, no, but Todd ended up, saying, oh, we're going. And so that it all kind of happened that night, and that was it.
And that was it. So that was 1998?
Yeah. So we're coming up to our 23rd anniversary 2 weeks from today. Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, happy early anniversary.
Thank you.
That's incredible. Because I was trying to think, because I didn't meet Todd right away.
It was somewhere around there, and then I think you guys re-met again in at the Formosa when you were in
Yeah.
LA.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Years and years
I
ago.
think that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I haven't had as much time to get to know Todd, but I've always heard the most wonderful things about you. Always, always, always.
Yeah.
So, Michael, you and I will not forget the first time I met you. And you were like, I don't know, you were like this angel that came out of like the heavens for me in this 40-week conservatory program, because we were both young. I think we were both 18 at the time. And like everyone was, much older than us, it felt like, in that group. And I was just so excited to see someone who was my age. And I remember you had your little cap on, and I think you were wearing overalls. And
for sure.
Yeah. And I was just instantly like gravitated towards you, and just remember you being just so super talented, and then just like impressed then when you moved on to directing. What made you want to become a director?
Actually, it was that I'd always wanted to. I always dabbled in it when I was a kid. I was always staging puppet shows in my bedroom, and my grandmother, would take, tickets at the door, and she would do premium seating, just like the producer she was. But that's kind of how that all started. When I went to school in Chattanooga, I went to a performing arts high school. It was an inner city school / magnet school. And there were no classes for directing, it was only acting. And so that's how I started doing that and going to school. And it was around when we did IBitch, Katherine, where I started taking the directing sessions there. And that's what really kind of like turned me more into what I wanted to do and to become. And then that kind of changed my course at Columbia in my first semester. And that's when I went straight into the directing classes. Yeah. And didn't we do was it biology of human sexuality together?
I don't know. How do you remember that?
And we filmed a movie.
I did film. You were in a short film, because I did both theater and film. So the first short film that I did, you were in it. And I remember it was like 16 millimeter film, black and white.
Yeah. And we filmed it at my old apartment on Newport.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. You have a very good memory. That is correct.
And like we were supposed to be like sleeping with each other or something. And then like there was something, and we did this as a presentation for like our final or something.
It was, I think it was about AIDS, like back in the day, about like, how easy it was to transmit. And Yeah,
I think we even used a Tori Amos song in it.
How do you remember all of this? Seriously. I have to find.
You have to see if you can find it. You have to find it.
Well, it's funny because in my brother's house, he actually has this giant reel of 16 millimeter film from, my Columbia days of things that I shot. So I think I do actually still have it. So I have to get it, what do you call it? Digitized.
Right.
Yeah. So we can.
It was all MOS, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I may still have it. So.
Oh my God, you have to find it. I really want to see that.
Oh my God, you were. Yeah, we have to, because I mean, really, like, how many things are there footage of you acting? Because you jumped into directing pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, jumped very quickly.
So this is priceless, Todd. You're gonna love this. It was a masterful performance, I have to say.
I've seen some performances before, so I've seen Michael do a couple of stage plays that have been eye-opening.
Oh yeah, it was. That was the whole thing at Columbia, though, Katherine. Like, if you were a director, they also wanted you to still be as an actor. So if you were directing a show, they wanted you to be acting in a show.
Yeah.
Vice versa. That was their whole thing. That model was set up by many different people that went before me. And so I don't know, I kind of just lost my whole thing for it in a really big way because it just wasn't where my heart was anymore.
Yeah.
And so I chose a lot of just completely crazy, random shows, like a lot of these Eastern European, like crazy, like, the white makeup and the black lipstick type shows. And it was, it was jarring for someone's husband. But other than that, it was more fun to do than your, pedestrian show. So,
Yeah.
and that was my ending of like, I do not belong on a stage anymore. It's not going to happen anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then with that setup with, the style of directing and them asking you to act as well, did that help you in terms of how you approach things as a director then for stage?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Like for me, I mean, I'm very grateful and I'm very fortunate to have had the past that I've had. I knew that I was not a good actor, but I really
What are you
enjoyed kind of
talking
like
about?
just being and doing what I was doing. It wasn't my strong suit, but directing, when I started that, that's where I just felt like all the pieces kind of fell into play. Right.
Yeah.
And so, what I'm grateful about is, it's the psychology of kind of knowing what an actor may or may not be going through at that moment and being able to speak their language in a very specific way to get what I want where they need to go from them, right?
Mm.
And then, of course, knowing that you've got, a cast of 8, you have to speak to all 8 of those actors very specifically, but differently than the other. So it's knowing where they're coming from. Oh, I heard you do this technique, though I don't, want to play around with techniques, but understanding like what their mindset is. Oh, if I say this, they'll understand what I want and what I need, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Todd, do you ever get involved with the actors at all in some of the scripted shows that you've done as well?
Certainly in the casting process, I don't, I am one voice in a group that chooses who actually ends up on our shows. So, in some respects, I guess I get involved in the process. I'm not doing anything that Michael's talking about. Lord, no, I didn't even understand what he just said. But, but, but I do cast our shows. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, so in terms of your perspective with the actors, then when you're casting a show, what really stands out to you in their performance, when you're looking to cast a specific role? Or do you ever sometimes find yourself going outside of maybe what you had thought in your head and going a different route if somebody really blows you away with a performance?
I think so for sure. I think there were like 3 questions in there. So
Probably.
let me try to answer the one that I think I remember. The first thing is, what I think that when it's so funny because if I was ever acting again, and if I could go back and tell my 22-year-old self something that I learned about the acting process for TV and film, is just relax, because it's so little to do with you. It's like, be prepared and be pleasant. It's rare that people are pleasant, and don't be too pleasant. I mean, don't stay too long, but be funny and prepared, and then be interesting and have your own interesting, unique point of view. And I think if you do all of those things, it's real. Then the rest of it's out of your hands. I think then you need to let yourself off the hook and say, you know what, it's because, they put all the pictures up on the wall and they cast these other 2 people, and I don't look like I could be the kid of those other 2 people. And so I can't, be something that I'm not, but you gave, you worked hard. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people that we've brought in over and over and over again, that just for some reason didn't get one part, but they were prepared and interesting and made interesting choices. And I will end this ridiculously long story by saying that the show Grimm is a good example of there was a guy named Reggie Lee, who's an Asian actor, who came in for one part, and we wanted this other guy for that part, but we loved Reggie so much. He did such a good read that we created a role for him. And so then Reggie and Sasha Royce, who played our captain on the show, both of them ended up getting the parts because they were that good. We had to have them in the show. So no matter what you do, be prepared and be cool and interesting, and hopefully good things will happen.
Oh, I love that. It's always great when actors, blow you away and you end up creating a role for them, which I've heard more than once as well has happened. So it just goes to show. It's just, show up, do the work, do what you enjoy doing, and things will happen. What about for you, Michael? What's the process like when you're casting a play, when you're working on a show?
Well, every time I direct a show, it's normally like a 6 month before I start rehearsals. It's like a 6 month process for me of what I'm looking for, the story I'm trying to tell, what the story means to me, and how I'm going to tell it in a way that's really super specific, but also really super interesting, right? And so casting for me is it's a very, very, very special thing. And so I try to be very specific with my cast breakdowns of exactly what I'm looking for, down to ethnicity, down to what this character is really super about. Not that you would just see, in the first pages or two of the script where it says like the breakdown. This goes more to 3 or 4 paragraphs of just really making it super specific. So the actors have a really good idea of what I'm looking for before walking in, and that's where I start with that basically. A lot of it too, I like to work with some of the same people, especially if I'm doing a show and I'm like, I know this person is so right for this role, and once my casting director checks out interest and availability, which I've kind of already done myself, we'll probably go ahead and give that person that role. When that happens, then I'm looking, and this is a Chicago thing, Katherine, as you know, I'm looking to build like the complete perfect ensemble, right? So I'm looking to see like who is going to fit with that energy and who is going to fit with like the style that I know that this actor brings is also my style. So it's almost like I've got one thing set and I start to build like the ecosystem around, the center, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the fact that you're still looking at that ensemble
I
idea.
think it's really super important, right? Like I don't like using the term leads. I don't like using the term like the supporting, whatever. I like to look at something as a whole because that's what it is. If my job is to tell a story and to tell it really super well, the only way I can do it is with what this is. It has to be that ensemble. It has to be this group that is there, and what is it, strong as you're only as strong as your weakest link or
Yeah.
whatever. What's that, is that the term? So it's kind of like that. And so all of a sudden you see that this is weak, this person's already making up for it, so it does, and it moves organically and beautifully, and that's what you want, right?
Totally. Yeah. I love that. And so, this last year's been a crazy year. Do you have any theater projects lined up?
I had 8 shows scheduled for last year.
Oh my goodness.
8. 8. And then one of those shows was supposed to open, God, is it April? Today's April 15th.
Yeah.
It was supposed to, oh my God, wait, today's Friday. Today was opening night. That's so funny. Today was opening night of the show I was supposed to do last year that got pushed to this year. That same show is getting pushed to next April.
Oh my goodness.
So there's that. And a show that was supposed to take to 2 shows I was supposed to take to Scotland last year got moved to this year. And then we just made the decision of like, it's too much to take this gamble of taking these shows to Edinburgh this year. Even though they've already released it, they're like, yes, come, orientation's open, registration's open. We just feel like with the money and the amount of time that it takes to craft what we're doing, we didn't feel that, this year was the right year.
Yeah.
Because we're not sure how things are going to go. And, if there's too many protocols or if the audiences aren't, if they're restricting the number of, people in the audiences, we're just going to wait a year. So I have nothing. I've got like different things that like I'm reading, that I'm working on, that I'm really interested to like going into a workshop or going into a reading to kind of start, the incubation process of some new ideas. So that's that's something that's kind of fun and interesting. But as far as like an actual contract, I have nothing until April of next year.
Wow. Well, it gives
Yeah.
you plenty of time to hang out with this fine young gentleman, Todd.
Oh yeah, he's so excited.
Please wear a mask so we can get Michael out of the house.
They are. It is looking like they're opening up theaters in specifically Los Angeles coming up in October, November. But of course, those are the shows that had to get postponed from like over a year ago, and so now those theaters are having to fill up from all the shows that were postponed. So even to do a show in one of those theaters, it's like 2 years from now just for one of those theaters.
Oh, wow.
That was into my.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible because, it's a totally different world here in Australia, as I'm sure you're aware. And so, live shows are happening again here.
Yeah, you have Hamilton and Frozen. Those are the two I heard, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I was curious because I was wondering at what stage you're at, as things slowly are starting to open up again.
We're at the state of denial right now. That's where we are.
Oh, gosh.
In a very big way.
Oh, well, at least you got Todd. Todd, what are you working on? I'm sure you're working on 5,000 things.
We're working on a bunch. The TV business got hit as well.
Yeah.
And so we've got a lot of stuff was sold last year that is pushed and hopefully will happen still. But we have a fun animated show that's coming up on Netflix this summer called Q-Force, which is gay James Bond.
Oh, wow.
It's very fun, and Sean Hayes is the lead voice, and Laurie Metcalf and Gary Cole and David Harbour and Wanda Sykes. It's a really fun cast of characters. And then we just got a pilot picked up a couple of days ago for NBC called Hungry with Demi Lovato. That's about people who struggle with their relationship with food.
Oh, wow.
A comedy about that. So and then we have a documentary that we're working on right now for Vice, which is about when it's okay to laugh after tragedy. And that's going to be released on the anniversary of 9/11.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, a lot of variety there, which, like you said, it keeps it interesting, which is really great. So one of the things I wanted to ask you both, and this would have played a toll, I'm sure, as well, like with the last year, but living in LA, I know for myself, it can be quite a challenge to keep a relationship going, especially when you're working with somebody in the industry. And, I've dated my fair share of actors and people in the industry. And you were saying you're celebrating your 23rd anniversary coming up. How have you made that happen? In LA, of all places.
Yeah, I mean, I guess our biggest thing, the big rule is we're not allowed to go to bed angry. And I think that was like one of the first rules that we ever set up in our relationship was like, we're not going to go to bed angry. If we're exhausted, we're still just going to talk it out and then we're going to make it work and then do whatever we need to do and go to bed. Not angry.
I think that we got out to Los Angeles at a stage in our lives where the race wasn't the most important thing. And we have a great group of friends around us. We've got a lot of great Chicagoans around us. And we find a lot of stuff to do that has nothing to do with the industry. And I think that keeps us sane. And it is an insane place. It's an insane business. It's, you got to be sure you really want to do this if you're going to be in this business because there's a lot of no's. And so you find yourself a supportive partner, and we're lucky enough to be in adjacent businesses. So we understand what the other person's going through, but we're not really competing with each other. So we can support each other and from an authentic and loving place, which I think is really important for any relationship anywhere, but certainly in Hollywood.
And like it's not just actors getting no's. Like I get plenty of no's for like I really want to do this show. I'm pitching to this theater, and it's oh no, we can't, not, it's not for us at this time. And Todd gets passes on his shows and his ideas, like his babies too. So it is definitely a town full of no's,
That's true.
but also a lot of hope and and there's lots of possibilities.
Yeah. And do you ever bounce ideas off of each other? Because you are in different parts of the industry.
For sure, absolutely. There's times where if I'm doing a show and I'm like, it's just not there yet, or I'm really kind of excited about it. And Todd doesn't want to see a show until it's opening night. Like he wants all the bells and whistles. He wants to see the costumes. He wants to see like everything done. And there's times where I might do like a designer run through, where we're just like there's barely any hand props. And I'm like, I need you to come see this because I'm not really quite sure if this is. I just know what you think. You know what I mean? So, and then lots of times he's like, "Oh, this is good," but I need to. I mean, no. That's all going to be fixed with, the costumes. This is going to be fixed with that, of course. So,
yeah, he's remarkably good at casting ideas. In fact, earlier today, I was trying to close my eyes for a few minutes, and he's like, "What about this person? What about this person?" Oh, God. I don't want to talk about this anymore now, but.
I honestly feel like Lucy.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like Lucy the majority of the time, and he's Ricky, obviously. But that is definitely our relationship. But I don't want to be in this show. I just want to help the show.
Yeah. Todd, what has been your favorite show that Michael has directed?
That is a really tough question. It's. I think that I probably would say The Color Purple is. It's either The Color Purple or Cabaret, right, Michael?
I don't know. I've actually never asked you that.
He also did a really lovely version of 12 Angry Men, which I had watched the movie so much. To see his interpretation of that at the Laguna Playhouse was lovely. But Color Purple especially because I didn't particularly like that show on Broadway when I saw it when it was around the first time. And what he did was take a show that 23 people were supposed to be in that show.
26, I believe,
and put it in a 65-seat theater.
Wow!
And the intimate version of that show. I mean, he cut down the cast, but the intimate version of that show was. It's what a great director can do to a piece of material. He elevated that material beyond what the material was, and made me love the show.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
It's very sweet, and I think if I read correctly, you actually won awards for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, and as did the cast and a lot of the designers. Absolutely, it was just one of those like little fun things that happened, and it was great, and it was celebrated, and it was wonderful, and that was a long time ago. It was 9 years ago right now, actually. It was a beautiful experience.
Yeah. Aside from that, is there any other shows that you've worked on that really stand out for you?
I did this play called Failure, A Love Story. This is by Philip Dawkins. And Philip is a Chicago playwright. And so Failure premiered first in Chicago at Picture Gardens. And so he gave me the script, and I'm like, I want the LA premiere of it. So we did the LA premiere of it in this tiny little theater in a park, right? And it's probably one of my favorite plays I've ever done. And it got picked up by CTG, Center Theater Group, downtown at the Kirk Douglas. And so it was remounted the following year to open up their whole new thing that they were doing called Block Party. And it got a lot of my cast members their equity cards. And it was a really beautiful, beautiful experience. It was really cool.
Yeah. It's funny that now I'm changing my mind because that show was just a beautiful piece of prose with very little guidance. Very little. There were no stage directions. There were no musical and dance. There are times where because I'm a mediocre producer who went to a stage school. He's the smart one. He gave me the script to read, I think, before, and I have no idea. I mean, good luck. I don't even know what the thing's about. And then after seeing all the stuff that he added, talk about an additive to the piece. I mean, took that from a Toyota and made it into a Cadillac.
Oh, please. It was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And it was, I like being able to create something and I'm not told you have to do it this, you have to wait this way, this way. There are no stage directions. And those are my favorite kind of plays. Absolute favorites.
You can be the most creative.
Yeah. Well, it's like, do you remember back in, with Steven Ivich, do you remember him saying, oh God, what did he say? Hold on. I know this.
Conscious reality.
No, don't leave your fingerprints all over the piece. Like, don't put your artistic fingerprints all over the piece. Do the other way around and lift up the piece this way instead. So our job is not to like to put our stink all over. Our job is to heighten and to illuminate the work, right?
Yeah. Man, were we lucky to work with him at such a young age, I think.
I know,
he really put an impression on you and me and shifted our thoughts about acting and directing and creating and the craft. Such an incredible experience. And hard to explain to other people as well, It's
almost impossible.
40 weeks of, put your conscious mind over to the other person and let them take care of it.
Yeah.
It really set us up for what we do now, Like I always think back to that training that we had and know that it had a lasting impact on, and, I don't act as much these days anymore, but I still do voiceover in voice acting. Sure. I definitely believe that it, plays a role in the performance that I have in front of a microphone all the time. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I have a question. Did I also read correctly that you directed The Graduate?
I did.
With Melanie Griffith? What was that like?
Yes. It was a whirlwind ride. She is absolutely delightful. She's really super lovely. Had a wonderful time. The play itself, I don't know if you've ever read the play, but the adaptation from the book it's rather rough. It is not a good script at all, and it was a very challenging play to direct because it was very hard to maneuver your protagonist throughout it. Because there was not a strong sense of follow through, or even the wants. Like the wants were very just kind of middle base, or there's nothing that was heightened at all, and it was very difficult to be able to try to even make that happen, like the follow through. Do you know what I'm talking about? So she was fun. She was great. We had a really, really great working relationship in a really problematic play.
So how did you, is that, because I think, it seems like with you, like you're selective of the type of plays you want to work on. Was that something where they approached you to jump on board? And
they approached me with the play. I was just, yes. They gave me the play. Yes.
Well, and that in Laguna Beach, there's an audience that appreciates the classics. So a recognizable title is sometimes important to getting butts in seats.
Right, and it's your classic 100-year-old Lort theater, where they bring in some really amazing people and they're trying and working very hard to be able to kind of usher in a new feel, a new flow, especially with their programming. But and they're definitely like moving forward with that for sure. But there's still like a need and a want for the classics because you got to get the people in there that still want to see what they know, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I guess sometimes you have to go where the work is, but it's every time you work on a show, it's a learning process. You take something from it, regardless of,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So when are you going to come direct something in Australia?
Second you hire me.
By the way, I mean that you really should think about directing something in Australia. Where are you in Australia?
Sydney.
And how is the smaller theater scene? Not the big traveling show, but the
It's
300 seats and under.
It's stronger in Melbourne. Melbourne is more known to be, more of I guess, the theater town than Sydney. But Sydney does have some great theaters. We've got Sydney Theatre Company, which is fantastic, and some other smaller places. But definitely, I think it would be great to get, someone like Michael to come and direct a show.
I'd love it. Wasn't that Kate Blanchett's company?
Sydney Theatre Company, yeah.
That was hers, right? And her husband was the artistic director?
Yeah, so I can't remember how many years they took over as co-artistic directors. Yeah.
Oh, they were.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. And, but yeah, that's a amazing theater company. That would be great for you to come direct a show over there.
Please. I mean, that would be lovely.
Yeah, right?
And then Todd could come with, and you guys can have a holiday
Absolutely.
around Australia.
That's right.
Oh, it's been so nice to see you guys. I usually wrap up this with, any words of advice to our international actors. I know, Todd, you mentioned some advice earlier on, which was really beautiful and I think really helpful. What about for you, Michael? Is there any words of advice you give to actors? It doesn't have to necessarily be, our international actors, but those that are, let's say stepping foot into LA when things are, not as crazy as they are now, and wanting to get back into the industry.
Sure. This is what I tell a lot of people, especially that just come to LA. They're trying to figure things out, and I tell them to make sure that they don't forget their craft, and their craft should be basically an actor boot camp that they do, every week. Where what did you do for your body? Meaning working out every day. What did you do for your voice? Are you taking voice lessons? Are you taking any sort of speech? Are you taking anything that's going to keep centering you from all the things you learned in school and your breathing, etc.? Are you still doing that every single day? What are those exercises? And then take a class, take your acting class, take something that's not going to, then it's not necessarily showy, but something that kind of that goes back to build your acting muscle, right? And going back to the connection with your scene partner, et cetera, a scene study class, whatever that might be. But it should be those three things, that triple thing that just keeps your machine going as an actor, as you're going out and as you're looking and as you're auditioning, you're still working here, right? That's my biggest piece of advice, on top of trying to get a good job and how you're going to make money, etc. But it's keeping those three big things alive.
Oh, I love that. That's great advice. Todd,
And read a play a month.
Oh, that's good too. Yeah, absolutely.
Remember those lists, Katherine, that Sheldon handed out to us? It was always the very the last month of school, and it would be this single spaced 8 pages of these are the plays you should have read by now. And you look at it and you're like, oh, well, I have somehow failed as a human being because I've read maybe 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just pages and pages of plays. Anyway, read a play a
No,
month.
I think that's great. And gosh, we're so lucky, so fortunate with the training I think that we had in Chicago, and same with you, Todd. I think for all of us, it's really sort of, I think, set a precedent of, what's expected of us in the industry, and to, keep thinking forward and ahead, and, being diligent about the work and not kind of, getting lazy about it. So I think that's fantastic advice. What about for you, Todd? Is there anything else that you want to say to the listeners about the industry that's important for them to know about? Let's say for you, more on the TV film side of things.
I mean, that was all such good stuff. I mean, the body and the boys and read a play. I mean, I guess my last thing, because be on time and be prepared to be funny and all of that stuff that I said already. But I think the thing that I've learned that can really help you in this business of TV and film, it's, I don't know about that, your haughty, fancy business of theater, but TV and film, just if you think you're an asshole, don't do the business then. You can never overestimate how important it is to have great relationships, because you never know. I mean, that the person, I talk about it a lot here on my side of the business, that, I'll end up working with an executive that used to seat people at the Leno show. You never know where the next person is coming from. And, there's so much else to worry about in this business. Don't worry about how you're treating other people. Just treat everybody great.
Wonderful advice as well. Thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been such a joy to see your faces and speak with you again.
Of course, and thank you for having us, and thank you for giving us Outback Steakhouse, because I think that without the bloomin' onion, I don't think there's many smiles. Now Michael will say something serious.
No, I was thinking like the shrimp on the Barbie thing, but you beat me to it. It's so great seeing you. It's so great hearing your voice. I'm looking forward to when I could actually give you a hug again sometime soon, when you could actually come here.
I know. Yeah, well, I'm sending you a big virtual hug right now, trying to at least.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Wow, thank you so much for this incredible interview. Thank you to Todd Milliner and to Michael Matthews. I don't know about you, but I am feeling inspired and thinking I am ready to take action and start working on my goals. And if you're feeling the same way and you want to get started on your American accent, but you're not sure where to begin, go ahead, download my free American accent guide that's going to break down my step-by-step process to get you sounding all American. It's yours. Just head over to katherinebeck.com/accent. And let me know if you loved this episode. Take a screenshot, share it with me on your Instagram story, and tag me in it at Katherine_Beck_. You can find me there. If you got any questions or topics, just let me know. Send me a DM, and I will be so excited to hear from you. And coming up next week on the show, I am going to be talking about why that accent class you took in acting school isn't going to help you book that U.S. role. Now make sure to share the show with all your actor friends. Let them know what's coming up next week and invite them to tune in with you and learn how to become an all-American actor so you can be the working actor you dream to be. Until then, go practice your American accent, and I'll see you back here next time.